Guillaume, welcome very much to, we're awesome to have you part of the Open People Network, Ask an Angel. And yeah, so today the best way to start and to jump into what we're all about is if you can give everybody a little bit of a background on yourself, kind of where you come from, what you've been up to, with the new ventures you're working on now, and then one thing about you that nobody will know.
Okay. I'll start from the top. So basically, I'm one of the managing partners at Valley Day Venture Partners. And pretty much what we do is we try to connect all of the actors in the startup ecosystem, primarily startups and adding value also to investors. And what I like the most is trying to figure out how we can get particular startups to that next level, and really figuring out what would be the best fit. And it's always like almost like a boxing match where it's like, okay, this didn't fit, but I got an uppercut for you next, so that one might land, so it might be a good fit there. So that is in a nutshell, really what I like doing, particularly in with tech startups. And first, we've been only active in Europe, but then we started expanding and playing around, connecting with startups from the US. And since today, officially, we're also working together with some startups in Southeast Asia. So for us, it's all about really making sure that all of the mechanisms in startups they rotate the correct way and manner and the correct direction and things like that to really get them to that next level. And as for something that people would never really know about me is that, well, one common misconception is that my name is French, but I don't speak a word of French.
All right, fair enough. Well, you might have to get some French in there just so that you're not misleading with Guillaume, right? I guess we'll have to send you some French lessons just so that you don't have to worry about that claim anymore.
Yeah, I'll try to connect with a French startup.
That's good. And maybe just a little bit about your previous background. You worked with a startup. You were part of, well, I guess it was a startup. And you were the CTO side. Is there some other, like, just some background, little details about things that really drive you to get you into where you are today?
Yeah, so I actually really build up from the bottom up, where I started as a web developer and really doing the programming myself, and things of that nature. But as I was helping more clients with those tasks, I noticed a you could say a common thread where there were two types of groups where they're either tech heavy or business heavy. So I figured, I'm already quite knowledgeable in the tech scene. Let me start reading up and getting into the business side of things. And that's how I got connected with other investors, VCs, and whatnot. Um, and that took a couple of years. But initially, it started out as web developer, just doing some small jobs here and there. And then the first startup I was actually CTO at, that was my, you can say, jump off point to bigger things, because that was the first startup where I was truly involved with day-to-day actions, that needed to take place to go from just a regular WordPress website to a completely customized platform that have built out and things of that nature. And once I started to figure out what was truly needed within startups on a day-to-day basis, I started to focus on particularly looking at business models as to how they work, and also evaluating, especially tech startups, their product, looking at, okay, how efficient is it running, and really looking at the product side as well. So those are the key things that I learned, really building up. And as a you can say as a CTO at one of those early startups, I was also at a accelerator program. So I kind of picked up a couple things as to what they were looking at and things of that nature. So I was exposed to all of that information, which gave me I was only taking notes as to, okay, how can I improve my craft? So I started focusing on the business models of these startups and their product themselves. So that's kind of a bit more specific.
No, that's awesome. So can you relate a little bit more to that CTO experience, that web development experience, to what you bring into the startups when you're working with them? Because I think it really does transition a lot of, and you kind of mentioned the two buckets, you've got business and tech. A lot of the time, and I don't know the percentage, but I'm going to say that maybe there's like 80% of founders aren't really technical oriented. They don't have the true understanding of tech. And you becoming this, having this tech background, have you seen that it makes a big difference in that conversation that you're having with startups?
Yeah, so pretty much what tends to happen is, you basically hit it on the head. A lot of these founders, they're not really tech savvy, but let's say they have a development team. There's always a disconnect between those founders and that development team, where it's almost one speaking English and the other one speaking Greek. They don't understand each other. So me having my base in the tech world, and then reading up and getting more familiar with the business aspects, gave me the opportunity to almost be a translator between both parties. So a practical example would be the founder coming in as to, hey, we need to update the look and feel of the product so that users can get to A to B faster. If you tell that to a developer, it's like, okay, so you need a button, or what do you need exactly? You know? So on my side, it would be on me as to, okay, we're gonna focus on the user interface. Within the user interface, the flow from one screen to another needs to go seamlessly. And then I would go communicate with the founders as to, okay, what is important to you? Then they would highlight maybe 2 or 3 points that they want the emphasis on. And then I'd get back to the tech team as to, okay, functionality wise, it needs to be focused on, it needs to be prominently highlight this particular product or this particular button. And it needs to go from one screen to the other, ASAP as soon as they click on that button. So that's a more practical example. As it pertains to, you can say that the business model, what a lot of startups actually, I wouldn't say miss, but they are very passionate about the dream that and the vision that they see. So what sometimes tends to happen is that they miss that they need a product market fit. So from my side, I tend to strip down the business model to its bare bones and really look at what is truly needed and what is not. Like I have almost like a priorities list of what's necessary and what's a luxury to have within that product. So that those are some more practical examples.
And is this going all the way back to, or are you guys mostly focusing on pre-seed and seed round companies so that when you're working with them, you can make those types of changes and use cases and find ways to better deal with the customers that are coming to their product or utilizing their product? So I'm assuming if you're further upstream, they probably have less chance of making those changes. So do you tend to look for really early stage companies that are in the process of building these out?
We typically have two programs. Like for that, we have a 2-week program and a 3-month program for that. Where the 2-week program is kind of is also meant for investors to maybe give some of their portfolio companies a boost, just as to, hey, can't really figure out what's going on with them. Can you guys look under the hood and really fire them up? And that tends to be for pre-seed, but mostly seed stage types of companies. And when it comes to a bit more mature companies, let's say early stage companies or almost Series A companies, with them we solely focus on business development. So let's say a company. So for example, right now we have a fintech company that we're helping that is already generating a couple million annually. What we're trying to do with them is to almost make them a bit more scalable by trying to identify markets that they either can penetrate or reviewing some of their products where it might be feasible for other target audiences or groups that they didn't consider yet. So that's kind of how the focus tends to shift.
Okay. No, that's well valuable to understand how and what you guys work with and where you fit in. So do you almost get into being that you're doing biz dev and you're doing updates and being able to help them sort through their fundamental changes to get to better sales? It seems like it's just a pure sales funnel. We'll make these changes so that you can start generating more uptake and more viewers and more people into your product. How do you guys offset this? Is it done because you guys do come a little bit more unique from being just a pure investor, angel investor? You guys are looking at this from how do we get in here at the beginning, help you work through your fundamental changes, updates and fixes, and carry this through as you continue to grow and build inside of that company. So is there a limited number of companies that you'll work with in a year, or is it open-ended? And then how do you structure those deals so that you're benefiting, but so are the companies you're working with?
Yeah, so basically, very good question. So basically, from us, the way we typically work with these startups, we have 2-week programs which are every other month, and with those programs, we take a maximum of 15 startups. And with those startups that we help, um, we it's a very high intensity workplace, where startups receive, you could say, trainings and workshops and webinars almost on a daily basis. That would be week one, and in week two, it's really going after structural changes that they need to kind of implement into their strategy to get greater growth. And as week two is kind of proceeding, that's when we typically start looking at, okay, you guys came here to grow, but at the same time, when all of this starts to really pan out, you guys might also need to really look at how are you guys going to get funding. So then we allocate 1 or 2 sessions to getting them investor ready. The 3-month program is a bit different because there we have a bit more mature audience, a bit more mature group, and that's where we break it down month by month, and that would be mostly focused on expansion. So that's where we would look at, okay, you're right now in Europe. We have some connections in Asia, or we have some connections in this country that might also be able to use some of your products, so we can get that connect really set up. And that is really that's also a 15 startup limit, and we have that for Europe. We have it twice a year, and for Asia also twice a year. And with regards to actual a bit more specific, the in the end of January, we have the first 2 week program. And in February, we'll start with the Europe slash US 3 month program. And in May, we'll have the first Southeast Asian European Connect 3 month program. And then in the fourth quarter, we'll have the other European 3 month program.
Amazing. That sounds so busy. It's not even funny, but you guys obviously have no problem making that work. So how big, you've got the 15 startups for to each buckets. How do you manage this on a team front side? So is there like account managers that focus on 5 companies each? Or is it full rounded that you've just got people coming in and connecting, you've built a schedule for them, and they're really just focused on the schedule you guys have put together for that 3 months or that 2 weeks? So it's high intense, get it through, make it through. Or do you give sparing time so that the startups can continue to build and grow and network and do the things they need to, but you've got touch points all the way through? How does that structure work?
Yeah, so with both programs, the 2 week program and the 3 month program, before we begin, every startup receives kind of targets that they will need to reach. With the 3 month program, we're more focused on the targets. With the 2 week program, that's where we can kind of be where we're mostly focused on getting them to pick up all of that information. So with all of
So does
those,
one sell into the other? Is that kind of the idea, that once you've completed the 2 weeks, then you're going to be more interested to do the 3 months because
exactly,
you've got some progress, you've got some good legs up, things have moved forward. Now you jump into the 3 months and we'll help you tackle a lot more.
exactly. And as for the team management aspect, for all of those 15 startups, they'll be assigned to one project manager. Granted, one project manager might have 2 or 3 startups, but the way we've kind of rotate a bit in each you can say continent, we have several partners, and all of these partners have a certain time slot with these startups. So with them, since we work together with them, they report back to me and my senior level team to say, hey, this startup actually might need a bit more sales, or this one they might need a bit more of that. The way it works, or the way we keep track of that, is because right now we're kind of finalizing a platform that we're building where investors and startups, in full transparency, would be able to kind of have a look into, all right, their traction is to this level, in the sense that, okay, they've been growing their amount of sales every month. The way we made it interesting for investors is that every startup has a due diligence profile. So whenever a investor would be interested in a particular startup, all they have to do is look up that startup and request their due diligence report or their traction report, and boom, we have a match already. So we're using the tools that are available to us, while also not neglecting the human factor in the whole. When it comes to the 3 month program, we're doing that as well. But as I mentioned, we're mostly focused on the targets per se, where especially in month number 2, that's where we really start looking at, okay, whatever we did in month number 1, yes, it's working, or no, it wasn't working. So we need to adjust this, this, and this. And then in month number 3, that's where it's business development on steroids, where it's like, okay, it has been working now. Now, how do we exponentially grow that? Which markets can we help you expand to?
And when you're doing that expansion side of it, are you guys putting, I know some accelerators, incubators, they provide like cash infusions to obviously bump their models up, or they do certain ways on criteria to help them with, if it's SEO spend or organic spends, like things that are going to help generate through those channels. Do you guys work and focus on any of those things, or that's still based up to the startup, and you'll just work with them to kind of work them through different sales channels and finding their niche and finding their way to closing faster and bigger deals?
Well, for us, it's mostly us working with those startups per se. We provide the expertise and most of all experience. When it comes to especially our Asian program, that's where we have connections with the government. So that's where we help startups either from the US or Europe really set up shop in Vietnam and Singapore, and those types of countries where people don't really know what's really going on. But at the same time, those markets are right now really on the rise. The economy there is starting to really rise. So that's where our connections with the government really pay off, because we'll be able to provide a clear roadmap as to, hey, work with this ministry of finance or whatnot, because that's where you need to be to get a grant from the government, or that's where you need to be if you're an investor and you're looking for the best tax breaks in that area. So that's pretty much how that's our strategy, because when it's like we're trying to provide the most resources to these startups, but at the same time, experience is the best lesson. Like once they get that experience under their belt, where where they go through it, that's our focus. So we try to provide tools, but not where we try to spoil them too much.
No, for sure. So do you build KPIs with each of the companies when you start, when you bring them in, you kind of sit them down and say, okay, here's what we want to achieve. So at the end of the program, we want to be able to achieve 120% growth over 3 months. And here's how we're going to do it. Here's some KPIs so that everybody on both sides is working towards a goal. And then the follow up to that is, how do you choose the companies and where do they come from?
Yeah. When it comes to selecting, I'll start with that question first. When it comes to selecting the startups, we're not really looking to compete with other organizations. That's why when I reached out to you, it was all love, all respect, as to, hey, ultimately we need to add value to these startups and these investors. So for us, we get deal flow from all of these organizations coming in. I say, hey, Guillaume, take a look at this startup. I think they'd be a good fit or not, and that makes it all work, because ultimately it's a win-win for everybody. As it pertains to providing a roadmap for these startups, we initially take in all of the requests to kind of join our program. There's some clear guidelines what needs to be in their you could say in their deck, what we review, and then they'll get invited for a intake, and ultimately they'll be either approved or they'll get a list of potential points that they need to improve. And then once they are the ones that are approved, they receive kind of a you can say a roadmap actually sent to us as to, hey, this and this and this day we will have a call to discuss this component, that component, that component, and all of which would be centered around reaching clear KPIs. In practical example would be, hey, your customer acquisition costs right now are way too high. So within the first week, we'll start focusing on what can we slash on your P&L sheet, because right now it's costing you more than it's bringing in. So let's try to focus on that. So that's pretty much how we phase it out through that entire week or entire 3-month program.
Oh, which is great. And it all centers around sales. It just centers around business development. So I know you mentioned there's a little bit of IT, but I think those are just changes that you're making to accommodate growth and sales. So
Yes.
I think that it sounds like you guys are really putting together a great little program that's going to allow for companies in different countries to be able to get better exposure and deliver more on their bottom line to allow them to survive. And again, at the end of the day, when you're driving sales, that's also going to generate a value for investors to come in because they're going to see that they finally have some market fit. If they didn't have it before you guys, they're going to be able to get it while they're working with you.
Yeah, definitely. And for us, we typically are always open to collaborate and whatnot. And the one area where the tech expertise always comes in is when you need to mesh business and the product together. Because, for example, like right now, I'm involved with a virtual reality startup where I also have some equity and really helping them to get to that next level. With them, in the beginning, it was more like, hey, we can do X, Y, and Z with virtual reality. Okay, cool. Who's your target audience? But then there was no match with the product and the target audience. It was like, okay, one of those two will have to give. And that's when they figured out, okay, our target audience is wrong, we'll adjust that. And now that they found the right target audience, now it's a matter of going back to the tech as to, okay, how can we fine tune it to really cater to that audience? And that's where you get to, okay, right now, our virtual reality solution, it's taking too long. What is available on the market for us to have a shorter development time for our clients? So it's always a handshake, which is inevitable. So it's we try to keep an eye on both.
No, that's good. And how do you now there's the skill set that you're bringing to how this all works. And how about your partner and the rest of your senior team? What type of experience and skills are they bringing that really help either make your skill set shine more, or do they offset your skill set so that when you guys are going in, you're going in as a powerhouse to help these companies all change? What is that diversity that you guys bring to the game?
Yeah, so my business partner AJ, which you've also met, he is really the marketing genius that I am not. Like I can have the vision as to, hey, we're gonna take these guys to that next level, but he'll come up with the creatives as to, hey, let's put something here and we'll put some flowers there, like really have that soft touch where I'm like, I'll come in with a hammer and try to hammer it out, so he keeps me balanced on that front. And then we have our other partner Josh, who's really big in the financial world. So when it comes to certain investor or financial relations, reviewing P&L sheets and things like that, that's where he's really at home. And together we're almost like a three-headed monster, where it's like, okay, what do you got? Okay, tech-wise, Guillaume, get him. Marketing. All right, AJ. What do you think does not fit with their roadmap that they have right now? And then when it comes to crunching the numbers, that's when Josh comes in. That's okay. This doesn't make any sense. We need to drop those costs ASAP. So those two, they're my go-to guys, and per continent. Like in Southeast Asia, I'm working with two guys, two Hungarians, Csaba and Ben, and one is really connected with the government, the other is really big on business development. So both really give me a heads up as to, okay, with certain types of startups, we need this and this and this as hard requirements or whatnot. So that's how that dynamic pretty much works.
I love it. So there's a really good synergy between the three of you offsetting each other's skill sets. So there's not any stepping on toes. It really is a great support factor. And I think that's what I felt the same when we were doing our talks. You could see that your partners were really stepping up in certain areas, especially on the marketing side, as you were kind of coaching the conversations and everything else. So I thought it was, very well done. But on the second hand, I can see how this dynamic would be a great way to help startups really work their way through your programs and get you to the end result, which is I need to get growth, even though I'm in an early stage.
Yeah, and at the same time, we're all learning from each other. So when AJ makes a deck, I'm picking up as to, okay, I should always have our logo there or something like that, so that when I hand over something, it's not all bare bones that he has to work from scratch, but it at least has something on it for him to proceed with. And same goes with Josh, with everything first coming onto my desk. It's like, okay, Josh, here you go. That's that for you. AJ, there you go. Now let's really set it up for these guys, and make a roadmap that makes sense for them.
I love it. So when's your next cohort start? What's the date of it?
Our next event actually is December 15th. Our next 2-week program starts just a sec. If I'm not mistaken, it's January 20th.
Okay.
That's our 2-week program. Yeah.
Perfect. And then just for context purpose, because I know that you work in different countries, where are you currently right now and where are you going to be in the new year?
Right now, I'm in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. And basically with the kickoff of the 2-week program, I'll remain here in Amsterdam. But in May, as soon as we kick off the 3-month program in Asia, I'll most likely be in Vietnam. First to officially kick off the very first cohort. So there's a couple drinks involved there. And so I'll be in Vietnam. And then I'll most likely have to fly back to Europe to kick off the second 3-month program for the Europe 3-month program, and the other 2-week programs in between, because the 2-week programs are mostly, I only oversee them, and Josh and AJ really get it down to the nitty-gritty.
Nope, that's awesome. Very exciting. I'm a big fan of Vietnam and the Netherlands. I've been multiple times to each country, and I'm a fan on both sides. So sounds like there's great things happening there. So I love that there's so much dynamic and movement. So very cool. I guess my next question, or something that I'd love to learn more about, is that while you've been working with all these different companies and the kind of the experience that you've gone through to get to where you are today, what got you on this path? What made you think, man, I really want to get in here and kind of dig in and help these companies and find a way to help them differently?
Well, to start with that, it was mostly by accident. Because as I mentioned in the beginning, I wasn't, when I first started with the first websites that I was making, I didn't even consider, hey, you can set up your own company. Oh, okay, I can do that. All right. and once I
and make it global. Like, it's not like you're just working in your basement. You're like working across the world. You're going into other countries. You've kind of expanded this quite quickly. So you're doing lots of great things, but something had to trigger you to say, hey, I'm in. I'm moving this way.
Well, it started with that okay, that's even possible. And as you get into other environments, I remember the first call I had with a investor in trying to raise capital for one of the first startups that I was working with. And it was first we were negotiating a corporate exclusive deal for that startup per se. And that guy was like, yeah, right now we're actually also raising capital and we're looking to raise 400 million. And if it wasn't just a voice call, he would have seen the flabbergasted look on my face because I could not fathom hearing 400 million drop so casually. So those types of experiences get you to, okay, that's possible too. And then it became like, yeah, okay. Then you fund, you raise capital for your first company. Okay, done. Okay, what's next? Oh, we're actually from Japan and we're trying to get into the European market. All right. I haven't done anything yet, but that's when that inner entrepreneur jumps in as to, I'm not gonna tell
Started
you that
solving
I don't really
problems.
know, but I can figure it out. I know I can figure it out.
Yep.
And that's when that work ethic comes in to really struggle first and figure out what to do and figure out, okay, this is a good angle to approach that topic. And kind of brings me back to what you had mentioned during our discussion panel, is that it's okay to ask for help if you really need it, and some people actually want to help, but you have to humble yourself as to, yes, I can ask for help. And once you do that, a lot of doors will start to open. And because, to be honest, I didn't expect to be doing business with the US and then with Asia, and all of these other countries. But as more doors start to open, that ambition gets more and more fuel, and you start to see all of these things that are possible, and it grows, and your own circle, that if they are the ones really supporting you and really adding wood to that log, like that fire, then yeah, the sky's the limit.
No, it's brilliant. And I totally support that, obviously, because I'm a fan of the, if you don't ask, you'll never receive, and you won't know if you ever could have got it. But at the same time, it is humbling. You do have to try and figure out how you can ask those questions. I have the toughest time doing that all the time. But I do find is that when you do get that to that state, when you start to see a problem, which Guillaume, I will say 100% that you are an entrepreneur through and through. And when you see a problem, you started to attack it and you keep solving that problem and you keep moving forward. And that's what entrepreneurship is all about, right? It's seeing that problem all the way through to the end. And then you started solving it in a bigger form and driving more people in, and more people saw you starting that to fix that problem and they want to be part of it. So then you start asking questions, and you start asking questions to the right people. And I will guarantee you that if you ask anybody a question for when it's around help, there is a 99% chance that someone will offer to help you back. Even if you think it's impossible, people will always want to help because people want to be empowered. And if you can empower them, man, they will jump through hoops for you. And it's just all about how you ask. And it's, there's always a reverse, and you got to help them too. So
One thing I would add to it is to actually stick with your initial vision, in the sense that even when sometimes somebody doesn't help you or reach out yet, everything happens for a reason. At least that's what I believe. So sometimes even a setback is a setup for a comeback. Because I'll give you an example. In February of February this year, before the whole coronavirus and whatnot, I was going to set up a physical accelerator program. We had the building, we had everything set, list of investors, everything set. Guess what? Coronavirus came. The co-working space pulled out first, of course. Then the investors was like, well, we need to focus on our portfolio company. And I'm left with only the plans. So then you have to really start figuring out, okay, what do I do now? What will work now if I really still want to do my accelerator program? Fast forward 5, 6 months later, and I get in touch with a couple really interesting people that was like, well, I like your skill set. How can we do something? And you work on concepts, whatnot, months go by, and then you suddenly have a new setup. And hey, this is actually even better than what I previously wanted to do. And so that is also one thing to keep in mind. Everything happens for a reason.
Agreed. And I like that, being positive, optimistic, brilliant. And that is the way. You got to keep shifting and pivoting to get to the spot where you feel comfortable, and then you got to work a different angle until you feel comfortable again. Because when you get too comfortable, I don't think you drive as fast forward. So always make yourself feel a little more uncomfortable, and then just keep pushing. So, but that's brilliant, Guillaume. So now what we're going to do is we're going to jump into our rapid fire questions.
Mhm.
And then we've got a couple personal questions to ask, and we're off to the races. So let's start off. All right.
All
Some of
right.
these questions you have answered before, so you'll just be reiterating so that the audience gets that right into the back of that the mind there, so that they won't forget. So in total, I guess, how many companies do you invest in per year? In this case, work with or invest in per year?
I work with a total of um, a minimum of at least 60 companies per year, but I either invest my time or money in just 4 companies per year
Perfect.
because I still want to be hands-on. Yeah.
Yep, that's good. Any verticals you like to focus on?
I'm industry agnostic, but I stick to tech. Hardware is really not my thing. And to be a bit more specific, fintech has been very, very popular, but also a nice industry to focus on. Yeah.
Okay. Any due diligence requirements that you look for before you make any commitment into the company?
Yes, I tend to look at first the product itself. If there's if they've really done their work on the product. With my background, I'm able to see if they really went in on it. And second, the team, because some people are entrepreneurs, not really entrepreneurs. So as soon as I sense a entrepreneur, I'm like, no, I'm out. I'm out. I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, you know.
I haven't heard that one, the entrepreneur, but I like it. It's a good tough classification, but at the end of the day, there are groups of people that do need a little bit more hand holding to get them over the line, and those ones are tough too when they don't have that full commitment.
Yeah.
Um, Investment timelines, like, is there a time period that it takes you to do this? 1 month, 3 months, a year? What's the balance?
For us, it's almost like a sliding scale, depends on how much we're raising. Typically, for you can say seed stage companies, it takes us either 4 months, 4 to sometimes maximum 6 months to raise the capital. Pre-seed stage, it's shorter, but it really 6 months is the max.
Okay, do you guys lead rounds, and do you have any preferred terms like pref shares, common shares, safes?
Um, it truly depends on the startup per se. And for us, because we're not going to rob those guys blind when it's a early stage startup. When we do go for equity, it's between 5 to maximum 10%.
Okay, that's good to know. You guys do follow-up investments. I guess you'll see how time goes. And you guys take board seats.
Yes. Usually in usually advisory board. That's usually our sweet spot.
Okay, so outside of the way your program works on helping with sales, is there anything else that you guys do outside of equity and the services that you do to help the companies, which is already a lot, so there probably can't be too much left, but if there is there anything else you guys emphasize on helping startups with?
No, not really. Like really that biz dev and looking into our Rolodex as to which contacts we can connect them with. That's the full extent. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So the next question I have is that based on the last few years that you've been kind of working through this system, talking to a lot of startups, is there kind of this heartfelt story of a startup that maybe they didn't think they were going to make it, they were having a tough go, maybe COVID helped them skyrocket into fame? Is there anywhere that you see there's a good storyline here that you want to share about some great things that have occurred with one startup or two, whatever that might be, but just looking for something that's kind of one of those heartfelt stories that really keeps entrepreneurs excited about the challenges ahead, but the success that can come out of it?
This story isn't as recent. It's the one where I had my first CTO job, the farm today, and we participated in a accelerator program here in the Netherlands, and we had to. It was, I think, demo day, and most of the startups. So out of the 12 startups, there were at least 8 startups that were awesome, just awesome, and there were only 5 spots to get to that next level and also be put in a position to receive funding. And me and the co-founder, we did our best during that program. But the night before we had to do our demo day presentation, I think my mind was stuck on that Post Malone song, Congratulations, where it was whatever I did, I was on my way to the program. All I was thinking was congratulations. All I was thinking, and the founder, he was like super nervous, and he was joking, yeah, I'm German, so we're sometimes a bit uptight, and but yeah, he was really nervous, and I told him about me hearing that song, and he was like, well, I kind of like that song too. Let's see what we can do, and we go up to present. The presentation goes well. We get a couple questions, so we're really feeling ourselves. But we were like the 3rd or 4th startup that presented, and there were at least 10 more startups that still had to present. And as we're sitting there, and you feel every minute going by because some of those pitches are really great. So you're starting to feel the pressure. And that song that I was hearing, the volume was going down. And then like I think 2 hours later, it was like, okay, we're going to announce who gets to that next level. And the 3rd company they named was Farm Today. And the founder and I, we just jump up. I blatantly jump up after, I knew it, and like super hyped. And that just goes to show that if you have that innate feeling that you're going to make it, Sometimes it ends up in that storybook ending. Sometimes it ends up with a lesson as to, hey, maybe you should look at this or maybe you should look at that. But that memory definitely was one of the highlights where I'm like, yeah, as a startup, you can basically do anything if you just put in the work.
No, I love it. That's great. Yeah, it makes a big difference, and like you said, your mind was in the right space, so I think it makes a big difference, right? So brilliant, and I like that. We are champions, and you know what? Maybe that's what you got to think about when you're driving forward. You got to keep thinking on the positive side, and good things will follow from that. So
Definitely.
we're going to shift just quickly to kind of near the end now, and it's been a great discussion. Learned lots of great things about how you guys are operating and functioning, and how you guys envision this new world of how to work with startups. So we kind of shift to the more personal side. So I started doing this a couple of weeks ago, and I've become a big fan of it because I find it the most interesting kind of component to discussions. So, what's your favorite sports team?
Los Angeles Lakers. Yeah.
Ah, nice. Now, have you always been a Lakers fan, or is that just because of the change that's occurred with the number
No,
one footballer in the world?
no. First, I was a Chicago Bulls fan when MJ still played, but then he retired, and then I got Kobe. So I was like, yeah, he passed away now, but yeah, kind of loyal to LA. And
Ah, that's
now
all right.
like, Galaxy won, and like LA has been picking up championships this year. Like, yeah, so I'm happy.
Oh, I like it. And you know what? I was a true-hearted Lakers fan since I was a kid, and then we got the Raptors, and
Hmm.
the problem was is that the Raptors stunk. So I was a very loyal Lakers fan until about the fact where I realized I keep going to Raptors games to watch the Lakers play. Tough to actually support a team that doesn't even, they're not here. So I
Yeah.
eventually became a Raptors fan, and it was just out of necessity because I kept going to Raptors games, and I couldn't just only go to Laker games as there were like 3 a year that I could go to, so it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
So I eventually became a Raptors fan, and as much as I still like the Lakers, it's been like 20 years, so it's almost gone out of my mind now. But I was always a fan, and you do still turn it on and still want to watch them because you love the yellow jerseys and you like the whole thing about the Lakers, the story all the way through. So they are.
And last year, you guys won the championship.
We did.
The Raptors won. Yeah, yeah.
Kawhi Leonard was a big player in that, so he kind of helped us through. So and
Definitely.
just circumstantial. Maybe they shouldn't have won. There was a couple of bad games we had, but you know what? We still pulled it off, and that's all that matters.
Exactly.
All right. So your favorite movie, and what
Mhm.
character would you play in that movie?
Ooh, favorite. Okay, I'm a very old school. I'm torn between the old school types of movies that I like. So, for example, I like there's a movie 1955 High Society with Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby, and Louis Armstrong, um, called High Society. It's a awesome, amazing movie. That's one that I truly love. Other than that, Hitch with Will Smith. I definitely be Will Smith in that one for obvious reasons. And if I need to pick a third movie, it would be what's that? Woman of the Year with Katharine Hepburn. Yeah.
All right. If I got to check out some of I think I have actually seen the first one, High Society. I think I seen that a long time ago.
Yeah.
What character would you play in it?
In that one, I would be Bing Crosby. Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna
Yeah,
have
because
to watch that
ultimately you
again
still
because
get
I
the
can't
girl.
remember the whole movie anymore. It's been a while, but I like the fact that you've gone all the way back to like 1950 movies. So we've had people pick Star Wars, even even movies I've never even heard of. Another one yesterday was a French movie, which was really cool. So there's
Intouchable?
Intouchables.
Yeah.
Oh,
That
that
was
was
good
a great
too.
movie. I actually see that one too. I thought great movie, and by far, he was all over that one. So big fan. But I like that. Hitch was a good flick. It actually gave me an idea on building. I think it was Hitch was probably 10 years ago, maybe it came
Yeah.
out, and I came up with this concept where it was a dating app that was going to be built off of LinkedIn, so that you could actually profile everybody and then drive it into dating, because now you know some more metrics around the person. So it wasn't just about looks; it was about
Yeah.
and obviously I never built it, but regardless, it was still a cool way to use data. Never went anywhere because LinkedIn shut off their API, so we couldn't get access anymore. So we decided not to build it. But that was a cool one that I thought would have been great, because hey, how else would you find a partner that you don't know everything about, and it's all there? So
Yeah.
why not? But anyhow, so that's pretty cool. Well, I appreciate that. I'm going to check these out. I think that the high society, I need to re-trigger my mind around that. But of course, Will Smith and Hitch, how can you say anything different? That guy was a rock star, regardless in whatever movie he's in. He's always the rock star. So brilliant. I like the choices. And of course, the Lakers are okay. They're not as good as the Raptors, but that's okay. You can't always pick the winners. But I want to thank you, Guillaume, for taking the time to be part of Ask an Angel, and very excited at the opportunities that we have to work together, and looking forward to seeing you on December 1st from 2 to 5. So hopefully you were able to make it to that. If you haven't, please sign up. We'd love to have you. There's going to be some great companies in there, and I'm sure there's going to be a few you guys might want to jump in with, and we can make those intros too. So looking forward to that. And again, thank you very much. And the way we like to end our shows, Guillaume, is we like to give you the last word. So if there's anything you want to share to investors or to startups, anything you want to say, the floor is yours, and I turn it over to you.
Okay, the only thing I want to say to startups is stay motivated, stay ambitious, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. To investors, I want to say risk is at every startup, but sometimes it's not just in numbers. Sometimes that gut feeling is good too. As far as my team and I, we are always open to work with startups and investors, especially with working together with OPN and other organizations around the world. We can all help each other out in one way or another.
I love it. Well, I got, like I always do, lots of notes. You're a good man. Thank you very much for the insight. And I like that line. Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Definitely.
All right, Guillaume, we're going to touch base later, but thank you again for your time today. That was great. Guillaume, working in the Netherlands, really just taking down business all over the world. So fantastic. Big fan of everything he's doing. Working in the pre-seed and seed round, helping early stage companies focus on sales. Big need. And making their investments and helping companies grow. Really, there's not much to complain about there. It's all fast and it's making things happen. So I joined one of their events. They did a great job. It was really exciting and a lot of fun. And they brought in a lot of great people into that conversation. And then again, his line, which I had to reiterate at the back, is don't be afraid to make mistakes. Go after it, and risk is always going to be there, but find a way to jump in and be part of that. So yeah, great conversation. So they bring a lot of experience and resources to help the startup to succeed. So as he mentioned, he's got a starting event for 2 weeks, December 15th, and then they do their next cohort for 3 months in January. So Guillaume, thank you, and everybody enjoy your day.